hundreds out there watching us. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. And we'll start with a roll call vote, starting with Spencer.
Summerhays present.
Meekum present.
McEwen present.
And Councilman McEwen has so generously offered to give us a thought or prayer to start our meeting tonight.
Now, I've spoken before about the governor of the state of Utah having a Disagree Better initiative that he's trying to recommend to all of the governors. And they continue to work on that. And as we enter into an interesting period in the Middle East, where there's some very polarized thoughts going on in America, both at the college level and the national level, I hope that calmer voices and reasonableness prevail. Because at the end of the day, as Americans, we have to learn to reconcile and to compromise. You know, that's something that the country's been founded on, and it's a principle that needs to be maintained in order for us to be successful. And with that, I'll give a legislative prayer. Father in heaven, we are grateful for the many blessings we enjoy as a community, for the ability to have the right and the responsibility to provide governance in the city. We ask that as we make decisions tonight, that we will be inspired on the things that will be useful to our neighbors and those whom we serve. For this we pray in the name of His Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman McEwen. Now, if I could get everyone to stand with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll start with an open session. The open session allows anyone in the public to make comments or to address the City Council on matters that are not listed on our agenda. We do have several public hearings tonight. If you're here for one of those, I would ask you to wait until that comes up. But if that's not what you're here for, we would love to hear from anyone in our audience or online. Please state your name when you come up. Will you come up here to the mic?
First of all, thank each and every one of you for offering to serve on a city council. It takes time and it takes effort. I'm not here to complain about anyone, but I was concerned when I read some of the articles that were in the newspaper. And my name's Ellen Anderson. And I know I'm older. After glancing, I'm older than any of you. And so I do have some history that I'd like to share with you. Several years ago, before they added in Centerville, Bountiful area, especially Centerville, there was a movement to go to fluoride. And there was a huge resistance in Centerville about not having the fresh water that the Centerville citizens were accustomed to. It was on the news, in the newspaper. When they went to get this vote, they made a kind of a verbal agreement with the citizens of Centerville that the city would be in charge of the water well, the church water well. So when I read that there was a motion in order to look at the cost to install a scanner, I was a little upset because for the last 18 years, I go to the water and get my gallons of water. And during this time, I've only seen one person get a 55-gallon can and fill it full of water. I don't think a scanner should be involved because, number one, you're going to have to create a program, buy a program. The citizen is going to have to go out of his way to obtain one of these cards, pay for one of these cards. Someone has to maintain that scanner. And when the scanner is down, the well will probably shut off, which I would do if I had a scanner. And the cost of that scanner is not needed because the majority of the people that go, and I go at all hours, not at late at night, and the people that go there are basically Centerville citizens. Their mothers and their fathers. I have met occasionally, I saw you shake your head, I have met occasionally someone from Lehigh and someone from Twilla. The Twilla person, when I was talking to them, they were looking forward to having an opening well out there. But you're causing work for your employees, and you would be causing work for me, because I would have to get a card, I'd have to scan it. And I look back to the verbal agreement 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, that the city made with the residents of Centerville in order for that law to be passed. So that's for your review. My next item is a suggestion to Centerville City. And my suggestion to you, and I've often wondered why we haven't done it yet, and it really popped up into my mind, is a few years ago, I was driving past the park and it was an open concert, and it just says open concert for Ukrainians. Well, I went and grabbed my neighbor, who happens to be Ukrainian, and we went right there, and we got to the very end of it. But what I found frustrating, and have found frustrating, is there is not a way that Centerville City can immediately contact the citizens and let them know of something that's spontaneous. And most people get their little handout and they throw it away. So Bountiful City has at the pool, they put up, using their marquee, and that's how a lot of people drive by that marquee purposely to see what that is. Centerville City is the only city in the northern Utah that has its own exit. Its very own exit that is designed for the purpose of people who want to go, who live here in Centerville. Why aren't we taking the advantage of the frontage road? A lot of people, they go home, they divert to the frontage road. Then they go up to Marketplace Drive, head home and shop. Then they get up here to 400 West and they split that way. They get up here to Main Street and they go either way. There's nothing here in front of the Centerville City building saying this is a concert, this is going on. With the cost of electronics, we could easily install several marquees run by a computer app of listing latest things happening. There is an emergency flood at this location. Stay away. It could be used for emergency. It could be used for information to the resident. And being familiar with right-of-ways and utilities. Utilities usually are up to 10 feet from the road. Cities usually have 15 or 20 feet from road line that they could easily install something like a small marquee. And I'm not talking about a large marquee. I'm talking about a marquee as someone sitting in their car, they glance over and they can say, oh, there's something going on at the park. Oh, there's that. I want to take my kids to that movie in the park. Oh, I forgot all about it. You know, it would be little things. It would tie and bring more Centerville City out to what we as a Centerville offers people. But as of right now, there's not. And a lot of people on the emergency button on their iPhones have taken it off or turned it off because it's, and I turned mine off because it got to be a nuisance, actually. It wasn't, it was like, there's Wandy here, there's this here, there's that there. And I'm going, I'm looking for a kid, or I'm looking for, what am I looking for? And those non-emergencies in my mind stop that. The last thing I'm going to say is regarding pickleballs. Take the pickleball money and put it towards the purchase of a cemetery. Sometimes, Centerville already has 2 pickleball courts and a couple of tennis courts. And I know you've got a grant, I was just told you had a grant. Take the money and improve and switch over a tennis court, which can be done very easily, really easily, because the lights are already there on the court. We repaint the court. And I hope you'll take some of my suggestions to heart, especially about the water. And again, thank you each and every one of you for serving, because until someone serves in any capacity, they don't know what the work is. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and leave. I have an itch in my gitch. Okay?
Thank you very much for your comments, and we will take them into consideration. So we will move on to our business items. Our first one is a public hearing.
You may want to find out if we have any members of the public online.
Oh, that's true. Do we have anybody online that we wanted to come to our open session?
Nope.
Wishful thinking.
We did have the mayor join online, though, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
He's here.
So we'd like to welcome the mayor online. We will all go to our business items. The first one is a public hearing to vacate and accept public utility easement at 950 North, 100 East. It's the Moser property. We'd like to vacate previously recorded public utility easement and accept a new public utility easement, ordinance number 2023-14. Is there any questions by the council before I open the public hearing?
Do we have a
Well,
staff report?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, staff report, sorry.
Thank you. As council, you'll notice we have 3 very similar items where we are vacating a public utility easement and accepting a new one. So typically, we prepare these public utility easements for these developments that do not already have them. Like, so if it's a parcel, we usually get these by plat, but a parcel may not have them. I'm not sure why recently developers have just been recording their own PUEs without any acceptance or review by the city. So the legal descriptions have not been reviewed, the terms of the easement have not been reviewed, the purpose set forth. So we're bringing you these 3.
They must be rookie developers.
Yes, perhaps. So anyway, before they can get their C of O or move forward with the process, we really need to correct this. And so the appropriate way to do that is to vacate what was inaccurately recorded and just approve a new one. We could just try to correct the legal description, but I just decided since we're doing this once, let's just do all 3 and do them the same way. So we have an ordinance vacating and then a new easement to be accepted.
So these 3 are not close to each other. Like, how did all of a sudden we get 3? Was this just kind of things that were percolating and all of a sudden we were able to do them all at the same time? Is there any coincidence that they're all 3 together tonight?
I don't know, and I've asked staff, are we telling people to, go ahead and prepare your own? What changed? Because it is really interesting that, I guess in the last 6 months or 8 months.
Usually it's a one-off, but then we had 3 on our agenda tonight, and I thought, well, but they're not associated one with another.
Exactly, they're just coming in, so I don't know, but we did talk about it as staff, and we're going to propose some ordinance amendments to make it very clear. So next time, when someone has a parcel that needs these easements dedicated, there will be a clear process in the ordinance that we could just send them to that ordinance. It'll say, you submit the legal to the city engineer and the attorney, we will prepare it, and also that you're not allowed to just record it on your own.
So who identified these?
Well, typically it comes up, and this was sort of a procedural issue, is that it's required once, in order to get their building permit. So way at the beginning of the process, they get their building permit, and it's a condition of building permit that they get on these easements. And I guess no one thinks about it, and then it comes up to certificate of occupancy, and that condition is still on there, and community development goes through the conditions before they issue the C of O and says, oh, these aren't on here. And it's very, very frustrating for someone that's ready to get in their house to know that they now have to deal with the city attorney and engineer to get these recorded. So that's how we find out about these. is at the
I didn't
end
know
of
if
the
it was part of the CenturyLink work or otherwise.
No, and then some of these, well, most of these said, oh, well, we already recorded that. Or, well, one of them had recorded it early on in the process that we didn't know about a few months ago, and then others say, well, they just are told they need to get it done, and then they go ahead and do it, rather than,
I talked to Corey, and he said you can record anything at the county. So the county will
Can.
let them record it, but then when they come back to us, and like she said, they want to finalize and move in, then Corey's picking up on them.
Yeah.
And he says it's just kind of a rash of, we had these different people all go up and record at the county. I think they were all pretty much like building their own homes. It's not like.
And I guess, Lisa, procedurally, I don't see the applicants, there is no applicant. I would have thought that the private property owners vacation and deed back to the city they would maybe be the applicant on it.
well, we decided to try and make this easy.
Okay.
Because we do want cooperation.
Right, because they're
and-
for our benefit.
Yes, and they will have to sign the new public utility easement,
Correct.
so we will, as long, if these are all approved, we'll take those back to them, and we have done some assistance in getting a corrected legal description. So on all of these, we do have a recommendation that you approve we have to have a public hearing, but we have a recommendation that you approve the ordinance vacating and accept the new public utility easement, subject to confirmation of the legal description by the city engineer.
Correct. So that's why my next question is, it's legal prepared by Kevin or his team. Is
Well,
that-
we usually have their engineer prepare the legal, and then we
Okay.
review it.
Okay, that's what
And
I.
so that's basically what we're doing, is reviewing
Okay.
these. But and the city engineer has confirmed these, but I still need to put them into the easement. So I'd say just leave that condition still on there, because that's a reminder for Jennifer and I.
Correct.
We still need to add something to those easements.
We don't have a site plan that shows that legal description on their property, do we?
We usually try to get a plot drawing. So we have the legal description as well as the drawing. That's our preference. And so, you know, if we have time to work with them and their engineer, that's what we request. So you can, yeah, because it's hard to read the legal and know where they are.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, we've taken time on this one, and the other ones, I do want them to be handled separately, because they're separate public hearings that may impact different utilities. But as far as we know, there are no utilities in these easements yet. They're new.
Okay.
Motion to open the public hearing on
Second.
950 North, 100 East matter.
Second.
Do we have anybody online? We obviously have no one here in the audience.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
So with the public hearing closed, do I have a
Don't
motion?
you have to vote on it?
Yeah, we do have to vote on closing it.
Oh. So can we have a vote on closing the public hearing?
We've already had a motion and a second to close it.
Right. So Bill?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2023-14.
Second.
Seems unanimous. Oh, we've got to vote on that, sorry.
We're cruising here.
I'm getting
Robin.
I'm getting nervous. I'm like, why is it going
We're
low?
moving fast.
Okay,
Aye.
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 Okay, with that being unanimous?
Motion
You can
to
also
open the-
vote.
You can also vote.
Yeah, you can
Oh,
vote too.
Aye.
Yeah, just because you're
We'll
pro tem
pass
doesn't mean
that.
you
Well, I
don't get to
can't
vote.
talk and vote and think all at the same time.
Will help.
Okay, moving right along.
Motion to open the public hearing on the 480 South 400 East property matter.
Second.
And then you do your vote.
All in
So we,
favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Hearing is now open.
So the public hearing is now open. Do we have anybody online for this one? So do we have a motion to
I'll
close
motion
the
to close the public
hearing?
hearing?
Second.
With that, do we have a vote on the,
We got to
All in
vote on
favor?
the close.
Correct.
oh, we haven't closed?
All in favor, we're closing it now. All in-
We got 3
I
chances to
hope
do
they
this.
don't make me mayor right away. If the city attorney would quit
Let us vote
laughing at me, it
on
would help.
closing the public hearing.
Okay,
on
we're
the
gonna
item number
close the
2.
public hearing
Aye.
vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
You're voting?
aye.
I'll make a motion that we vacate previously recorded public utility easement and accept new
Well,
public
The
utility.
the mayor's got to give a judgment as to whether the vote passed or failed.
Oh, yeah.
And as in,
Yep, passes.
it passes
Okay.
unanimously?
Yep.
Now you can do the motion.
Now,
Yeah,
can we have
now
a
I'm gonna,
motion?
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2023-15 vacating previously recorded public utility easement and accept revised and corrected public utility easement, subject to confirmation of legal description by city engineer.
Second.
If you'd like to make this last one easy, you really don't have to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Okay. We're just trying to make sure we do.
Practice.
Just in case anybody got
They're
online.
trying to make it hard on me.
But
now you're on a
We've made a
roll.
motion in a second, we just need to vote formally on that recommendation, Robin.
Okay, so go ahead and vote on this.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
okay.
Motion passes.
Motion passes unanimously. So we'll go to our next one, which is a public hearing to vacate, did we do the second one?
Yep.
Yeah, we
Guys
done
are
the
going
second.
too fast for me. Hi, to vacate the public easement on 21 East Carrington Lane for the Campbells. We will open this public hearing.
Make a motion to open the public hearing on 2023-16.
Second.
Public hearing is open.
No, got to vote.
Oh, no, she said we didn't have to vote to open it.
She actually said we didn't even have to make a motion, but.
We didn't
we're
even
still
have to
doing
make
it-
a
Now you made a
motion.
motion.
We're still doing it procedurally.
Aye.
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 Mayor, aren't you happy you picked me?
So you're ruling on the motion?
So now the public hearing is open.
Motion passes.
The motion passes
Yeah.
unanimously. I hope the rest of this is
So
easier.
your public hearing is open?
The public hearing is open. Still nobody online, Jennifer?
Still nobody online.
Make a motion to close the hearing on the motion on 21 East Carrington, ordinance 2023-16.
Second.
We,
All in favor?
all in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. With the public hearing closed, do we have a motion?
Yes, I'd motion that we approve ordinance 2023-16, vacating the existing public utility easements and replacing them with new ones on 21 East Carrington Lane,
Subject to confirmation.
subject to confirmation of the property description by the city engineer.
Second.
So ordinance 2023-16?
Correct.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second.
Aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Okay, moving on, we've got the Centerville Municipal Code Amendment regarding the Veterans Memorial niche wall and the interment of the infant and
Remains.
remains in a burial space, ordinance number 2023-10. Do we have staff?
Yes, thank you. We're proposing some ordinance amendments. We were looking into some fee schedule amendments, but also, since we recently installed the Veterans Memorial niche wall in Freedom Hills Park, we have some provisions about those niche walls and fees, but they're in Title VIII, which governs cemeteries. So we're just adding a provision that says, wherever we put a niche wall whether it's in a park or the cemetery, those niche walls are subject to these cemetery provisions and the cemetery fees. So that's the proposed amendment to section 8.03.085, just saying that, you know, this new Veterans Memorial niche wall will be subject to the regulations in Title 8. And then, since we were already making some amendments, we thought we'd make a few amendments to a provision in our code which allows an infant or the cremains of an adult or infant to be placed in an existing burial space. We adopted these a few years ago. It seemed reasonable to say that there's more space in a burial space, whether someone's already interred there or not, to put these remains. And we have been doing that, and that works fine. But we recently had a request to place those remains in a double-depth vault. And actually, the double-depth vault was not occupied. And so we realized how problematic it is, because double-depth vaults have to have the cement, and we access them in a specific order, and it's just too problematic, in staff's opinion, to allow that on the double-depth burials. And so even though our code says that this is up to the Parks and Rec Director to determine, we like to keep our ordinances fairly objective and just make it very clear that you can do that, but only in a regular burial space, because it does not work for the double-depth burials. And so that's all we're trying to accomplish here, is to make it clear that you can put those in a regular burial space, whether someone is interred in that space or not. If they're not yet, then we can handle that at the time, but not in the double-depth burial. So we're happy to answer any questions, and Bruce is here as well, but
Bruce, do you mind coming up? I just have a quick question related to location of where double depth starts and ends in our cemetery.
The double depth section in our cemetery, as you come into the cemetery, into the entrance.
From the north?
The first section from the entrance road east, I think it's about 5 or 6 rows are double depth
Not
spaces.
many are double depth.
No,
Okay.
less than 100.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Just to add to, there's just simply is not space in a double depth crypt. It's a concrete box that basically has a shelf in the middle and space for a casket on the bottom and a casket on the top. There's just not space to also put something else in there. In a regular grave, we dig it 5 to 6 feet deep, and there's 3 feet of space between the top of the concrete vault and the soil level, in which we can dig down to the top of that vault and place cremains or an infant in that same grave space. Whereas on a double depth, the lid of those double depth vaults is only about 18 inches below the surface. So there's just not space to put that in, plus the other problems that Lisa mentioned that just makes it so it would not work.
Are you saying, I guess I didn't realize that in a double depth, it's only 18 inches underground?
The top of that vault, it's about an 8 foot high vault. So you're digging a 9 foot hole, 9.5 foot hole or so to put that vault in. So yeah, there's only about, and that's designed that way because you're putting that vault in and putting the first person in the bottom and putting that shelf in and putting the lid on and burying it. And then you're going to come back and you're just going to take that 1.5 foot of dirt off, take the lid off and put the second person in, put the lid back on, put the dirt back on. So you don't want to have to dig 3 feet of soil out to get down to put that second person in. So it's actually designed that way to make it a little easier on the second opening. The first opening is quite a bit of excavation. The second opening is quite a bit less, and we've charged the same for opening, whether it's the first or the second, because they balance each other out.
Am I the only one that's bothersome to? It seems awful shallow. Apparently I'm the only one. Everybody's staring at me like I'm in the night.
I was actually thinking of the frost layer, but
I was thinking, I don't want to be all the way 6 feet under, so that'd be cool if I get the top shelf.
Like the top bunk or the lower bunk, Bill?
I want the top bunk so
Well, the
I can get
problem-
out easier.
The problem is it's all covered by the timing. It doesn't matter what you want.
Yeah,
yeah.
you gotta be you gotta live longer.
I
The
don't
person on
think
the
it
bottom.
matters.
And I guess the casket's
Doesn't
actually
show.
further down than that, it's just the vault that's
Right.
right there.
Right.
So the body is further down in the
Ins-
ground.
yeah,
It's
inside
just
a
the
casket down
vault that is 18 feet, 18 inches.
Yeah.
It just seems it seems very peculiar to me. I'm certainly no expert. I don't know why, but it does.
Do we have any more questions?
No, just to comment on the installation up at Freedom Hills Park, it looks really good. I think that's going to be a nice memorial going forward.
There's still just a little bit of landscaping touch-up that we'll do, and maybe a little retaining wall that you could sit on, that'll be over there too when we're done. But it is functional, able to be made available once you have your policy in place for people to start using it, so you bet.
Bryce, have we done any,
Bruce?
no, I'm asking
Bryce,
Bryce. If you've done any, yeah. I do know your name, Bruce.
Bruce Price.
Have we done any social media that says, hey, this is newly installed and we're really
We
proud
kind
of
of
it?
need,
kind of a
kind of need to
thing?
have a policy in place, and what you're doing tonight, approving the fees and all that before you start advertising, because as soon as you do and have
Yeah,
people
I guess
call-
I'm not advertising, I'm only just saying, hey, this is a new improvement
wanted
to our
to have-
community and we're proud of this and.
Absolutely, but we wanted to make sure that we had this stuff put in place so that if we start getting phone calls at the front, the ladies knew
Okay.
what was gonna happen. But we actually talked tonight about doing a video
Good.
at the site and just.
Yeah, both.
Bruce
You got,
talking
you got a
about-
lot of, to live up to with Dave.
Dave
and,
Walker's
Yeah,
flood-
exactly,
flood,
so you may want to talk to Dave
Yeah,
before
Deputy
you do the
Stash
video.
might make an
Yeah, I was
appearance.
going to say the mustache is optional, but
Not the girl mustache.
Thanks, Bryce.
Anything else from the council? Any other
Any
questions?
other questions?
Yeah, do I understand correctly that an infant's body, uncremated, can go in a niche?
No, not in a niche. Yeah,
Pardon?
no, not in a niche. Niche are just for cremations.
Okay. I misunderstood what Lisa said then. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No, I think what Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, what you were saying is if you wanted to, you could do an infant and cremains in a burial plot.
Regular grave.
Not a niche plot. Is that correct? Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I'd motion that we approve Resolution 2023-24, Centerville fee schedule amendments regarding niche walls and veteran memorial niche wall fees.
It's the one before that. We're on item number 4.
We're on 10.
Sorry, I got that wrong. Yeah, 2023-10.
Okay.
Not the fee schedule, the municipal code amendments.
Do we have a second?
Just to confirm, Georgia, the ordinance number 2023-10 amending.
That would be, so let me just
The
do the
niche
motion
wall.
again.
Yeah.
A motion that we adopt ordinance 2023-10, Centerville Municipal Code amendments regarding the Veterans Memorial Niche Wall and interment of infant or cremains in a burial space.
Second.
Second.
I get a vote, starting with Councilman Inks.
Aye.
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 Okay, we'll move on to number 5.
You got a rule on it.
Oh, sorry,
Motion,
motion passed unanimously. Moving on to number 5, Centerville fee schedule amendments regarding the niche wall and the Veterans Memorial niche wall fees, resolution number 2023-24. We'll turn it to staff for a report.
Yes, thank you, council. So we have proposed fee schedule amendments to add fees for this new Veterans Memorial niche wall. And since we were adding more fees, we just decided it'd be easier. We had all our cemetery fees in one section that had burial spaces and the niche wall spaces. And we just decided to divide them out. So now we'll have one section that's on cemetery burial rights, and then a new section, 6.015, dealing with these niche wall fees. So those are the proposed amendments in Exhibit A, where we're taking out any reference to the niche walls in 6.010. And that required a few amendments to the notes, but those notes are just to eliminate any sort of cremain references. There are no substantive changes to those fees. And then in Exhibit B is the proposed new section where we put the niche wall fees. And so what we're proposing is that for a regular niche wall in the cemetery, those fees are the same. And then for the new Veterans Memorial niche wall at Freedom Hills Park, we're proposing the same fees, because this is to cover the cost. It's not really, it just covers the cost of the wall. And then we also and then all these other fees are the same. We're not changing the fees, we're just adding a reference to fees for the Veterans Memorial Wall. But we also had to add a definition of veteran and non-veteran, because our regular wall was resident versus non-resident. So
That's really the only difference in the table that I saw.
yes, and
Okay.
so what we're trying to do is say, and this is the proposal, that you still need to be a resident of Centerville, so we're using that same definition, but you also have to be a veteran to qualify to go in the Veterans Memorial Wall. And it was interesting trying to research the federal definition of veteran, and it got very complicated. This 38 United States Code 101 has about 2 pages of the definition of a veteran. And they get into active duty service requirements. They get into whether training or active training qualifies as active duty. So I just tried to be broad, actually, and say, you know what, if you're a Centerville resident and you had any kind of service in any of the armed services or the reserves, even if it's just for training, you're still a veteran for that Veterans Memorial niche wall. It doesn't require active duty. If you're just doing training, or if you've been in the reserves for 20 years, but you were never called to active duty, you still qualify. So
Or if you're in the reserve for 6 months.
it just says any with honorable discharge. And so is 6 months enough? Yeah, if you were in it for 6 months and you couldn't serve anymore, but it was a honorable discharge, you would still qualify.
Okay.
So I feel like this is a really good compromise to say, you still have to be a Centerville resident. We're not opening it up so broadly, but the definition of veteran is broad, if that makes sense. So that's the proposal. And again, it would just be the same cost as our regular niche wall. But then we ran into the complication of, well, how many do they get to use or purchase? And staff's recommendation is that it's just for the veteran and one other person of their choosing in their space. So that, we're not taking up the whole top row with a veteran and his or her family. It's just the veteran and their spouse or, whomever they would like to have in there. So that's the proposal. I think it keeps it simple for staff, hopefully broad enough for any Centerville resident that has served in the armed services. And remember that our definition of resident is also quite broad. So even if you lived here for a certain amount of time, so I think hopefully this will cover some. And I guess this is our proposal of where to start for this and to see how quickly they sell out and how impactful it is. And if they do, we can build another one or consider some amendments.
George is our resident veteran. How do you feel about that definition of veteran?
It is a tough one. I have seen some people who they did a deferred deployment in the National Guard when they were 17. So that starts your retirement counter. They wash out before basic training, but you've got 6 months. Technically, you can qualify as a veteran for some benefit packages, discount cards and things like that. My personal viewpoint is if you're claiming to be a veteran and you washed out of basic training, that's shameful. That's stolen valor to real veterans. I would hope that anyone wishing to be interred up there has provided some meaningful service. Now, that can be you were in basic training and you got injured and hurt and you were medicaled out. That's completely different. And to Lisa's point, it's really hard.
Then it becomes really challenging.
Yeah, it becomes really challenging. So, this is a place where people can recognize a solemn dignity and If somebody decides that they meet the qualifications of veteran, I'm not necessarily going to check on it. We're not really worried about stolen valor at that point, but I would, in a lot of these cases, when people are being interred in these sorts of locations, there's generally, they not only put the dates of death, but they put the dates of service and their branch of service. So it becomes pretty evident pretty quickly who's a veteran and who, and I don't want to say real veteran, but who's given some meaningful service to the country. But on the whole, I'm not particularly worried about abuse. I think the only complication might be is if you have a veteran and their spouse passes away first, then you're interring the spouse before the veteran. As long as, they plan to be there, that's probably okay. I mean, we did have somebody come in before we built the niche wall and said her husband had been sitting on the edge of the piano in an urn for a couple of years because we didn't have any niche walls available. So I don't know, Bruce, did she ever get her husband? Yeah, so when we finally had him, she finally did inter him. So not that I'm eager to see anyone get on the wall soon, but I'm sure that it will be a fairly popular thing because that's like I say, it's a great space with the statue up there and everything. I think it's going to be a good memorial all the way around.
Okay, thanks for sharing your thoughts.
So to that last point, we did consider that as well, whether if the veteran's spouse can be inured first in the niche space, and the policy actually says that the veteran has to be placed in there first. Because there's so many contingencies, and then you could just have someone that's not a veteran in one of those spaces. The veteran, changes his or her mind, and so anyway, in footnote 6, we do say, provided that the veteran must be inured in the niche space prior to the inurement of a second set of cremains. So you would just have, the family would have to hold on to those, and then when the veteran passes, they would both go in.
I'm only smiling because we had cremains of my grandfather under the bed, my mother's house, for 4 years until the right cousin could take them to where they needed to go. So it's not uncommon that relatives live on in the household in a box or an urn somewhere.
So you've got the limitation in there about the veteran plus one.
Yes.
What if the veteran had two spouses?
Pick the one you like best, I guess. I mean,
Has one space.
yeah, you're limited on space.
I don't know.
Because then you get into the issue of that requires two niche spaces, and then what is that niche space? What is the
What does it say on the second?
correct
niche?
to George's point? What would that say on it?
If you got skinny urns, you could get 3 in one.
Can? I thought you couldn't.
Yeah, we do limit it to 2, because
Doesn't
that's
matter.
about
Not
all
if
you
there's only
can.
2, I'm just saying, if they were skinny enough, you could fit three in one. I'm always trying to figure out a way to make people happy.
Okay, I won't rock the boat.
It is hard.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, that's where we're trying to get into legislate by exception, and you want to be accommodating. And practically, in this case, I don't know how you do it, like from a practical application, outside of using two niche walls, or niche
Two
spaces.
niche spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get into the wishes of the family as well as the veteran and spouse. That's one where I would keep the policy clear and then let the family figure it out.
Yeah, and then if they at that time feel like they've got a solution for a council 4, 5, 10, 20 years later, let them bring it to that council. Maybe they have a recommendation at that point, if it's,
Yeah, and
That
and
meaningful.
if we say and up to two spouses, then what if somebody has three?
yeah.
And I think this is a
Pandora's
great
box.
start.
Yeah,
and-
and this is maybe a starting point, yeah.
Yeah, really happy that Centerville has put in this. I think it's going to be very special, very special place and honoring those veterans.
Okay,
Okay, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2023-24, amending CFS 6.010 regarding cemetery and burial fees and enacting CFS 6.015 regarding niche wall and veteran Veterans Memorial niche wall fees.
Second.
The vote, starting with Councilman Ince.
Aye.
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 Passed unanimously. We'll move on to the Providence Mental Health Service Agreement for the Police Department. Do we have anybody here to talk about that? Is that you again? You're really earning your wages tonight.
Well, the police chief sends his apologies. He's at training as well as Lieutenant Ackerson, so I told him I'd be happy to keep this on the agenda and present it. As you'll recall, I think in 2021, we entered into an agreement with Providence to provide mental health services for law enforcement. And that was in response to some statutory provisions. And that was a 3-year agreement, so technically it doesn't expire until 2024. And that was at a cost of $3,411 per year. But in this year, the legislature adopted more legislation, HB 59, that expanded that mental health coverage to spouses and children and extended it 3 years as well from retirement. So Providence has proposed a new plan that would meet those statutory obligations at an annual cost of $8,100. And this new agreement is intended to replace the old one. So we'll be adding a provision in there that terminates the old with no additional cost. It'll just be replaced by this one. So
Will you do a whole new agreement or just amend the existing agreement?
it's an entirely new agreement
Okay.
that with one section that terminates the old, because each year you're going to determine who's eligible and how many.
It's cleaner that way, too.
Yeah, and it expands who's there, so they just thought it was easier, but yeah, it was a lot more review than just amending it, but, and as you'll note in the staff report that I have sent my suggested revisions to Providence. They're the same comments that I made 2 years ago, that I'm just asking them to put in this agreement, some revisions to their service agreement as well as the subscription agreement. But I haven't heard back from them yet, so we're recommending that you approve this new agreement, which provides well-needed mental health after retirement or after they've left the services of the city, but that's subject to revisions requested by the city attorney to make this agreement consistent with the terms of the prior agreement. And that's the last sentence of the background.
So I'm 100% supportive of this, but it seemed to me like, are there more companies that offer this? I mean, it seemed like we're covering all of our police, which are more apt to need it, for $3,400, and then it just seemed like, for it to more than double, it just seemed like a lot to me.
Well, more than doubles
Yeah,
because it's not just spouses, it's their families. So
Spouses, dependents, and the retiree and the 3-year
so if you thought it was
extension.
by time, let's say on average,
original
you're
covered
tripling
retirees.
the number of individuals you're administering the program to, you're actually getting a pretty good discount.
Yeah, it's not bad as far as that goes. And when you look at like PTSD related to violent situations, that doesn't always manifest itself during the time they're a police officer.
Well, I'm
That can come
100%
up
supportive
years
of it.
later.
It just seemed like the police would be the ones that would be more apt to use it, so I was like, I mean, there's nothing we can do, but it just seemed like a lot. Would we really have 2 or 3 times as many people use it with what we're offering? But I guess nobody knows that up front.
Honestly, I hope so, because it's really not only a tough profession, but it's tough on
Oh, it
everyone
is.
around them, so.
I agree, and I'm totally supportive of it. Just was surprised that the price jumped as much as it did.
Yeah, I just think, just from a numbers guy, taking emotion out of it, if you have a +1, if we're using that term, and family, so you're +1 more and more than one child, just multiply your contract by that number and we're less than that amount, so I feel comfortable.
Yeah, and I also want to, the prior agreement was for a 3-year term. This one is it's a year-to-year, although we have to notify them, so we're going to have to keep on top of it, but
Do we
this
have
is
rights
only a 1-year obligation.
Do we have rights of renewal at a specific rate?
No, they put in there that they're just going to recalculate every year. And so that's why I tried to add in, well, we need to have the right to terminate after you tell us how much it's going to cost.
Correct, and well, and.
Because they wanted our notification of termination, 90 days out, but we won't even know what the dollar amount is.
Well, and what I was gonna say is, an option to terminate, but I would suggest you put in an option to renew at no more than 2% or 3% increase from where you're at now, and see if that plays out.
Yeah, we briefly discussed that,
Oh,
but
did
it
you?
wasn't in the proposal.
It would be a good ad if you could get it.
Right.
Because I
But the
like
pro-
locking in
Yeah.
because,
At least it gives you an option.
yeah, and government loves to have predictable budgeting, so that would be.
But it goes both ways, because if it goes up too much, it's kind of like all of our other services, and we say, okay, well, fine, we're going to go out to bid.
I know.
And maybe in response to Councilmember Meekham's comment that, yeah, we can find out, and maybe next time, see if there are more companies that are providing this. But overall, if you really think about providing this mental health,
But you don't
even if it keeps one other officer, more.
Right. Oh, I'm 100% supportive of it for the families and everyone.
Lisa, you don't think they'll provide us an option to renew?
With a cap on,
Yeah,
we can try.
okay. Why don't you just try?
And what's that number?
I would say a 3% increase from where they're at now. Not to exceed. So that way, it gives you the ability, if they provide you the price,
And it has to be like a pro rata though, because the price is based upon how many participants. And so each year they're saying, we're going to recalculate those participants by, you need to give us the numbers. So then it would just be no more than 3%, I guess, on
based off the proration.
the base.
Yes. So we would understand that if it came in at proration plus 3%, that makes sense. It's not necessarily that it's going to be capped out at 3% above the 8,000.
So it's
100.
essentially a renewal right with
Yes.
a not to exceed cost.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would suggest.
Okay.
Just gives us some flexibility.
Do we got any reports, or do we know anything about officers using the service and how satisfied they are?
Chief did a month or so ago, didn't he? He says
don't
it's
know.
been really successful, if I recall correctly.
I don't remember.
I don't know that. I mean,
I know they have to be really careful with what the information they do let out on it, but I don't know if they can give us the numbers or not.
I'd support Councilmember Ince. Brandt, if you don't mind, just having Chief report that on a future meeting, just 5 or 10 minute
Yeah,
update.
just a 5-minute update, I mean,
That'd be okay?
We've talked about it, of course, amongst ourselves of how successful it is. I don't have numbers, and I don't necessarily ask for how many, because we know how many officers we have, and, but the report back is that it is successful. It's working and it's evolving at the same time, right? This is still a new space that is evolving with new conversations and with the state legislature requiring cities to offer this service not only to the police officers but their families. You're having a lot of different therapists entering this arena to help. And so Providence, we started off with, and Chief thinks they're doing a fine job, and they're a little bit, the difference between Providence and EAP, the Employee Assistance Program that all employees have access to, is Providence offers questionnaires that tries to get a little bit more insight into each officer's kind of state of mind. And, if there's red flags, then Providence could say, hey, we saw something on the questionnaire we want to talk to you about. So it's a little bit more proactive than an EAP, where it's like, dang it, I messed up and I need to go talk to somebody. This one says, you might mess up and we'd like to talk to you before that happens. So that, along with their peer-to-peer counseling that Detective Cash really helps out with. He leads that. It's all working well, hand in hand together right now. But I can absolutely have Chief go into a little bit more detail if you'd like.
Yeah, no, I think, for my part.
don't need a lot of detail.
Yeah.
I'd like to say, yeah, we've had 6 officers participate, and 5 of the 6 were thrilled.
Okay.
Just
Yeah, I
an
can.
idea.
I'll have the conversation with him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this something we need to vote on?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, if that's okay.
Okay, thank
Everybody okay? I'd make a motion that we approve Providence Wellness Program Service Agreement and related documents for expanded mental health services for police department members, spouses, and dependent, subject to revisions requested by the city attorney as discussed this evening, in addition to what you already have on tap that are consistent with terms of prior agreement.
Second.
And the right of renewal clause.
And that's what, sorry, including the right of renewal that's been discussed.
Still second.
Second. Okay, can I get a vote starting with?
Aye.
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 That passes unanimously. We will move on to the purchase approval of community park lighting. I'm assuming we have a staff report on that. Can we get Bruce
It's
to
not your
come up?
staff report?
You can let somebody else have a turn.
Bruce? I picked Bruce.
This is a summary action for the approval of the contract for the solar lighting for the community park, which will light the east and west parking lots, the center corridor, and lower level lighting around the walking path, and also there'll be lights on our volleyball court. And you've got before you both the installation contract and then just the materials, the poles and equipment.
So the question that came up after you left last meeting was, hey, one of the issues was, do you have the solar panels, what's the wind load? And you've got that in the
So it's
the
90
packet here.
yeah, it's
It says
90
90 miles an hour.
90 miles an hour is what their minimum wind load requirement is 90 miles an hour.
Minimum load requirement or maximum?
Minimum. So the minimum, they have to be able to handle at a minimum 90 miles an hour.
What
So
can
Well,
they-
that's
what can they
one
handle
out
at
of
a
two
max?
storms.
Huh?
What can they handle at a max if they can,
They're not saying that, they just put it, that this is the minimum that we guarantee it can handle 90.
oh, so that's the max really, it's not the min, that's the maximum that they guarantee.
Right. It's possible they could withstand more, but what they're guaranteeing is 90 miles.
Do they guarantee up to the gust factor that's in the packet, the 1.14? Which would get it up to 102.6? I guess the
Whatever's
the
in-
issue
yeah,
is
yeah.
we have
What-
gusts
I gave you the
over.
details in your packet, so yeah.
Yeah,
The issue is if they don't guarantee up to 100 miles an hour,
we regularly get.
we get a
more
100
than
mile an
that,
hour
yeah.
wind. It's like, it's not a question of if we do, it's when we do. In my mind, I don't know how the rest of the council
I mean,
feels, but
even if you go on the 10-year ticker for Centerville, you're guaranteed within 10 years to get at least one of those storms. And this is the problem, though. I mean, with those static tests, there's only so much you can do. It's really going to be tough to determine, but we should be prepared for making sure we have some park fund reserve after the storm, or maybe that's a FEMA thing, because we're going to lose a few panels.
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
and
unfortunately.
maybe to the question before that, George, is does this company provide any,
5-year warranty is what.
well, do they provide any materials that get us to 100 miles an hour?
I don't know that. I can ask and find out. I don't think so, because the difference between these light poles and our regular light poles you see around the city is they have a solar panel on them. So it's gonna pick up more wind, and they can angle them so that, you know, and I told them, hey, on all these, we need to put the solar panels so they're not gonna catch east wind, because those tend to be our strongest winds coming from the east. But, so we can do some things in installation to hedge that, but yeah, there is gonna be more wind caught by a solar panel light versus a regular light.
So there might be some post mods we can make to the solar panel. I'm assuming it's aluminum chassis on the solar panels or plastic, do you know?
They're
'Cause
aluminum.
if it's aluminum, we can put a stainless steel cable, just so that if it does break loose, it doesn't leave the pole. So there's a few things we might be able to do to do some post
A
modification.
little safety catch, yeah.
Yeah, because that's my main concern is that
That it takes off.
it takes off, and I've been in many of these storms where I'm watching kids run around because they think it's great, and I just don't want to get one killed by a solar panel that gets loose.
Sure.
Not to
Yeah.
say they won't get killed by the roofing or shingles or anything else that's coming, but at least it won't be something that we didn't anticipate.
And I was hoping that we would be able to prevent it by getting something that would meet a design criteria that's over 100 miles an hour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
our ball field lights that are at that same park are 70-foot poles with those big halogen lights, and we have had fixtures, the knuckles on them break, and we find them on the ground the next day. So yeah, the wind does affect them for sure.
Yeah, but there's a little bit of difference between those fixtures and a solar panel that might have a significantly longer flight path.
Oh, yeah, as far as coming down, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
lighter weight,
Frisbee.
but farther
Yeah,
distance.
But, yeah, you got Frisbee effect.
Right, sure, yeah.
How big are the solar panels, do you know?
The specs are in there, you'd have to look at them specifically, and there's pictures of them and of them installed, so you can see what they look like.
I'm not sure which one wouldn't be under here, right? Do you know which one that shows the solar panel?
Probably right there.
The
number
installation quote, equipment,
Yeah.
materials quote?
Actually,
One
might even be
analysis.
in a previous, when we were first
I think you had,
selecting.
I think you had a cut sheet right there, Jennifer.
That
on
showed like pictures of them installed on another trail and in parking lots, and it might have been at another council meeting when we were,
It's in the third attachment, or sorry, it's in, I think it's the embedded 17.77 foot one.
That's the one.
Yeah, it's got dimensions, it looks like on that, on detail A. I don't know if that's the solar panel itself. And if that's measured in inches or.
Yeah, that's inch.
yeah, I would guess that's what's in the ground portion of the pole is my guess on that detail A.
You think that's more of a cross section?
Of the 2004, is that what you're looking at, 2000, right here?
This one?
I'm not sure, I think this is actually in the
Oh,
ground.
detail A, detail A is at the top of the pole. B is a cut from the bottom of the pole.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's, that would be,
Oh.
B, this is.
Yeah, it's not, on the legend, it's not specifying the solar panel on this at all. That's all the mechanicals for the pole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can find out. I do think these are the best quality as far as solar lights. If you want to look at running electrical and not doing solar, we could, that takes away the solar panel off the light, but it then adds trenching and running conduit all through your park.
I'm not horribly opposed to the solar, I'm just where Spencer is in terms of making sure that we're
Okay,
doing
sounds
everything
like
we
a
can
liability.
mitigate flight of one of these things in a
Right,
storm.
right. Yeah, I would imagine that there's got to be a little safety cable that we could attach to every one or something that's separate from the hinge that's mounting it.
It just depends on what the construction of the panel itself. If it's a
Yeah.
plastic panel, won't matter, you can't secure it, it'll just break the housing. But if it's in an aluminum tray, or if it's got an aluminum top cover, you might be able to do it.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody in our public works probably can weld aluminum.
Parks department.
I don't think Mike heard you.
I was signing you up to welding aluminum or somebody in parks,
Yeah,
so.
we actually have a skilled welder.
Ray can do anything. Just
There you
so
go.
know.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Any more comments? Is this something we feel comfortable with making a motion on? Do we want to vote on this? Do you want more information?
What kind of problems do we create if we ask for more information?
Long delay. We won't get it this season, will we?
Yeah, well, we have the installation contractor and dates already set for November, so it would just mean maybe and then prices change. Their quote that they've given us is for this job at this time. If we go beyond that time, they're probably going to want to rebid it and requote.
I don't have a problem putting them in, but traditionally our windstorms our worst ones are in December. So we definitely want to look at if we're starting to put these in, we're going to have to do some extra engineering on making sure those are secure.
And I can make sure we do everything we can. If, ideally, we would have a real good one to test them out because it's under the 5-year.
I don't know that that's,
The first 5 years, they're under warranty, full replacement warranty, so.
I don't think the warranty claim involves fatal injury of a resident, so.
And my focus was more of, hey, if there's a product out there that meets that design criteria over 100 miles an hour, it'd be nice to have that number to see what it is. But
I can certainly do some more checking around, see if there's somebody else that beats higher wind rating. It will cost more, it will cost more to.
correct, yeah, it's beefier.
Right.
But, it may cost more, but if it saves us an hour per pole retrofitting some cable or something on it,
Yeah, and the installation is based on the numbers also, so that if you start cutting out poles or whatever, the price of installation per pole goes up. So
That's what I'm wondering,
we're
if you just
talking
put a
about
call
there.
into GSL and, hey, say GSL, like 90 miles an hour doesn't cut it for Centerville.
Yeah.
You've got to have a design spec that meets at least 100, maybe to 110, frankly, because our gust in 2010 got up to 109, if I recall.
Okay, yeah, you bet. I'm
So I don't know if you call.
I'm sure they will do everything they can. They,
If you
you
call
know, they want our
Aaron.
business, so.
Is Aaron also is the GSL doing the procurement on the materials or just the labor?
So there's a labor contractor, the installation contractor, and then there's the manufacturer that we're buying directly from the
Oh,
manufacturer.
okay, so we're buying directly
Yeah.
from
Von Roche.
Von
Yeah.
Roche?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe you can talk to him and see. I
Yeah.
think I think you'll find that you're not gonna
Yeah,
lose out on the price if they're not gonna increase the price in today's market. That's my feeling. But
okay, yeah, I can certainly go do that.
Have a
Sorry
motion.
to make you do this, but I think we need to, I think it'd be, knowing what we know about Centerville, it'd be foolhardy to think that 90 miles an hour is gonna be our highest wind storm in the next 5 or 10 years.
I'm right there with you. I'm not even apologizing for that. It's just a
Yeah.
reality. We
Yeah,
know it's going to
no,
happen.
Yeah, we'll just tell them.
I know,
Hey,
I
sorry,
just think from a,
these just won't work in Centerville, yeah, unless we can, increase the guarantee on that wind rating
where are the panels placed?
at the top of the
on
pole.
the top of the pole.
Is there any ability to put the panels at the bottom of the pole? And run
So-
wire?
So so,
You wanna get it out
Yeah,
of
you-
people's way, you don't want.
yeah, you don't, we've even situated them because of the trees that are there at the park to try to get them in areas where the trees that are taller than the poles are not gonna be shading them. And yeah, putting them down towards the bottom
Okay,
would not get the sun.
I'm just
sun
thinking about
exposure.
the flight effect.
Do I have a motion to table this still?
Is there any way that we can do a conditional approval?
But we're going to be changing pricing.
Very likely, okay.
And maybe not, maybe you'll come back and say, they said they'll go 100 miles an hour.
And this is one where if we needed to, in my opinion, if we got back one that met the wind loading and the pricing was not horrible, I would just say do a emergency session and get it done. To me, this is one where I don't want to wait necessarily till the next council meeting.
I would prefer not to wait because we've already waited 2 weeks. But I do think that we should at least know.
Yeah, but if we can get it and we can convene a council meeting with the appropriate notice, this would be a one and done, 10-minute conversation.
I can talk with them tomorrow and see what they can do, and it might be they do have to do a little more design or something specific, but I think it could be brought back quickly, and still meet our November. And November's a great time for us to do construction at the community park, because there's not soccer games, baseball games, football games, all those things going on, so.
I would say then that I would make a proposal that we defer action on this proposal pending additional information from Bruce, but to be dealt with as quickly as possible.
Second.
Aye?
You call for a vote? Mayor Pro Tem? Aye.
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 It's unanimous. We will,
Thank you. Sorry for the grilling.
oh, that was good. We want all of the answers we can get. Guess we'll go to the summary action calendar. We have a bond reduction for the Brandon Wells home site, start of warranty. Bond reduction number 1 and start of warranty for the Brandon Wells at 233 East Parish Lane in the amount of $33,110. Do we have any questions? Do we want staff on this, or are we okay to just?
I'm okay. I'd make a motion that we approve the reduction of the warranty pending, or, I can't see, I don't have my detail. Can you back up the other screen? Approve the bond reduction and start of warranty on the Brandon Wells home site at 233 East Parish in the amount of $33,110.
Second.
Aye.
We'll go ahead.
You're
for a
supposed to
vote.
talk,
So
not
you
nod.
acknowledge the motion in the second.
Well, Bill talks, and then I'm like, yep, that's what I want. We'll call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, we will go on to the
So
minutes.
you got a rule on the
Oh,
vote?
yes, we have a unanimous decision on that. Moving right along to our minutes. We would like to accept our minutes for October 3rd, 2023. Does anybody have any changes to those minutes or comments on them?
Motion to accept the minutes as recorded.
Second?
Okay, so we'll go ahead and vote on that, starting with Councilman Inns.
Aye.
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 And then we will have a financial report. It's quarterly.
Got a rule on the vote.
Oh, I can't ever remember that. Unanimous on that? I'm going to be really good by the time we get done. Maybe.
Not so sure.
That was really rude.
I think he means we're almost done anyway.
I resemble that remark.
Well, at least you weren't late.
All right, good evening, council. While Jennifer pulls that up, we are now a quarter way through the fiscal year. So time's flying by. We'll start off on the next page. If you want to go, first we'll hit on the good news. The interest rate is the highest it's been in quite a while.
I'm not sure that's good news.
Well, good for investment, I should say.
Okay.
Good returns. We're getting quite a bit more than we did, since before 2020. So that is good for,
For 2011.
that's true. It's been quite a while, but it is good for our investment. Our overall cash position, we're in pretty good shape in most of our funds. As you can see, we do have a couple areas of concern. The first being the recreation fund. We're at a negative cash balance there. That's due to a few culminating issues. One being that our expenses have exceeded our revenues the past couple years, and it's kind of just catching up to us. And the other is that in our, this first quarter of the fiscal year, we don't have a lot of incoming cash. So we do have cash flow for baseball, but we're expending that as our fall of baseball league happens. So there's not a lot of cash flow. Our summer rec, they pay all their fees in the spring, early summer, but then they continue throughout the summer. So we have outgoing expenses for summer rec throughout this first quarter. So there's a few issues there. We do want to hold a work session topic about this later, where we can kind of dive into the weeds. Frankly, I put these financials together on Friday, so I haven't had a ton of time to dive into it myself. but if it's all right with you, we can dig into it a little bit later on a work session topic. Our other area that we're keeping an eye on is drainage.
Nate, as you prepare that,
Yeah.
maybe just for the council's benefit, just historically think about, has rec in the past been subsidized, by how much? You know, just some of those historical contexts would probably be helpful for us.
Yeah, I can look into that.
Okay.
A quick answer that I do know is that we always transferred the amount of the rec coordinator's salary from the general fund to the rec. So then the programs can kind of supplement themselves. But, you know, over the last couple of years too, we have, you know, increased our recreation offerings. From my understanding, it used to be mainly just summer rec, and we've kind of expounded on that. And that does come with some startup costs and other things. So, yeah, I'll get some of that information for our work session. Look into the
And
subsidizing.
if some of them are startup costs, you're meaning it's a one-time cost and won't occur again, or just,
I'm
that's
saying
food
it's-
for thought?
Yeah, I'm saying it's possible. I
Okay.
haven't dug into it, but I do know that we have expanded our
Yeah.
recreation program. But yeah, I'll get some of those details for our work session. Again, the other area that I'm watching is the drainage fund. We knew, if you remember last year, we did the big the pipelining project. We knew we used a whole bunch of our fund balance. So this was expected that it would dip low. But again, just something to be aware of, and we'll be watching that. And again, we've already talked about the drainage and, you know, potential fee increases that we're looking at there as we look at adopting our master plan. So again, we'll be talking about drainage more in the future as well. If you want to go to, I guess, 2 pages down, we'll look at our general fund revenues. First thing I want to note is that our property tax, the majority of that comes in November, December-ish timeline. So we have not received the bulk of our property tax yet. Sales tax is doing pretty good, despite having a month that was less than the previous year. We're still slightly above budget, at about $38,000 above budget. And it's, you know, so our sales tax is remaining strong, which is great. You can see that our total revenues are at 22% of the budget. And again, that's because we have not received our property tax. So once we receive that, we'll be above our budget there. Going on to general fund expenditures, there's not a lot to talk about here. There's no real concerns. Most of our departments are within budget. Again, with no concerns. We're at 24%. You know, we're 25% through the year, but only 24% expended. So we're right on track. And again, it does show a net loss of $303,000 in the general fund. But again, that property tax plays into effect there. Going down to the RDA, it does show a net loss, and that's a result of not getting our tax increment. We don't get that until the springtime. So we'll probably continue to see a loss until we get that tax increment. And skipping down, I've already talked about our recreation fund, and again, we'll talk about that more. Our RAP tax is doing really well, which is good because that, you remember, RAP tax is reflective of sales that occur in Centerville. So it means that our businesses in Centerville are hopefully doing well. Again, if you see the comparison to last September, we are about $9,000 above last year. And then we can skip down. There's not a ton going on in our capital project funds right now. But if we want to skip down to the water fund, you can see that our operating revenues are exceeding our operating expenses. And then we do have a number of water projects that we're still paying for right now. You can see that our total expenditures are at 21% of our budget. Although I will say that we're paying out a number of large construction invoices this week. So that percentage may change by next month when you see this financial report. But overall, our net income in the water fund is a positive 560,000, which is good. And then skipping down to drainage, again, I'll point out that our operating revenues are exceeding our expenditures. And then the net loss that we see currently is due to our construction projects that I think we've paid out all of our construction projects. So we'll kind of recoup from that, what is current a net loss over the winter months when there's no construction going on. And that is all I have prepared for you tonight. Are there any questions I can answer for you? Other than that, things are going well.
Any other questions for? Right,
Will the
thank you.
drainage fee be also a top of a work discussion? I mean, we talked about that when we were going through our budget process, and we talked about, hey, we're gonna increase our transportation fee, but do we want to deal with drainage fee in the future? Obviously, that's,
Yeah, I think it was brought up.
it's a glaring issue.
Yeah, it is. I know they presented on the drainage master plan probably about a month ago or so.
Yeah, that was the one I meant.
But yeah, I think it got up briefly then, but we are looking at a rate increase if we want to keep up with that master plan.
Yeah.
It will require a rate increase.
We-
And we are
Are
planning,
we gonna plan to present that in the budget for 2024?
I believe so.
Nate, if I can interject real quick, we had that on the agenda for tonight in our work session, but since the mayor and Councilmember Hurst weren't in attendance, we thought we should probably delay this till a future meeting. So that should be at the next work session where we discuss the potential fees and rates and implementation. It could be in the next budget, could be sooner, but we want to start having those conversations now to prepare, to get that in our minds as we prepare for next year's fiscal budget.
That's wise. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much, Nate.
Thank you.
We will now have a council report from Councilman Summerhays.
Okay, just quickly on Trails Committee, we've had another new member that we approved as a council, Jake Santini's there, actively engaged, so that's great. Doing some coordination with the Forest Service, because some of our trails obviously head up into Forest Service land, on improving some of our existing trails. There's we've got new signs mostly installed or all installed now. If you follow any of the trail posts, they're great, you know, kind of the Forest Service look, the National Park Service look, where they're the wood signs, they're etched, carved in, they look really great. Letters went out to owners on the hillside, kind of introductory letters, letting them know who the Trails Committee is. If nothing else, to foster relationships with people. If somebody wants to sell a property or has a question about trails, they have some contact here at the city. So I think that's been a great thing as well. So some good active things. They wanted to really hit the trails plan, but Corey's kind of told them to hold off until we go through the general plan update, which will be part of that process. So they're proactively patient, I guess, is where they're at in there. South Davis Rec Center is, we went through the budget last meeting, which was last Monday, and it was an extensive budget review, which was helpful, but when it comes down to it, the end story of my concern continues to persist. So we had a vote, it would be a couple of months ago now, on a rate increase. The vote was 5-3. The three dissenting votes were me, Kate Bradshaw from Bountiful City, and Mayor Westergaard. And the approved, now what's going to be is, as I recall now, it's upwards of either 125 or 150% increase. As you recall, when I presented a few months ago, to make up for inflation and other things lost, it was closer to 75, which I thought was reasonable, and then take care of things through a bond. Get your house in order so you can set yourself up for the bond once the existing one rolls off. But the motion that was made discombobulated as it was the rate increase with the focus on using some of the money to update the locker areas. Well, to point out, and I pointed this out in the meeting on Monday, last Monday, was that we're now showing a net income for next fiscal year of $590,000. The existing restricted cash position of the rec center is negative 1.22. It has, a $2.5 million repair and replacement reserve and some emergency operating reserve, as well as capital projects, but you're still on a restricted cash basis, negative. So again, back to the number for this budget cycle, you're at 590 net income, not including your capital expenditures. And your capital expenditures for 2024 equals 655. So you're still short. And you're not accruing any money that would be going towards these.
The accumulated deficit.
Well, the deficit or the notion that the voting members voted for improving your restroom and locker areas doesn't even get you there, because the next year you still got more capital improvements. To me, again, I mentioned this in my last council report, was that they not only made in my mind, a bad motion, but they made a complete policy shift motion away from a bond. They went from, hey, we're going to take care of capital improvements through a larger bond, to we're going to fund it through ongoing cash flows, and frankly, it doesn't pencil.
Get close.
It doesn't pencil. So I don't know how the remaining board members who are for the existing motion and the rate increase are driving that math, but that math doesn't work. So I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to be crafting an email that will go out to fellow board members to point this out and say, your motion's a bad motion, and here's evidence of that. They probably won't like to hear it, but I think the numbers speak for themselves.
Well, they probably won't like to hear that there are several people wanting to know how you dissolve a special service district too. So, they need to get their house in order, otherwise that's not off the table that voters are gonna say we're done.
Yeah, to me, it is counter to the motion that I passed, or that I made last August and passed also 5-3, was let's get our house in order so that we put ourselves in a position of trust with the voters to pass the bond, and, a few other steps in there, and now it's taken a whole different direction, which is unfortunate, because now you're not gonna garner any trust with the public, and you're still gonna be in a position where you don't have any money to make improvements, and you've actually set yourself up for more challenges than, and I don't wanna say failure, but you're not setting yourself up for success.
You're definitely in a position where it's gonna look more mismanaged in each taxing cycle.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, I'm just articulating what you want to say there.
Yeah.
It just makes it look mismanaged, and that's never good for a government entity.
And I think I read the other day that it was 143% that they're asking for.
Something like that, because we had to go through the county approval.
Right.
You're
Right, I
essentially
read-
getting a mill rate increase, not exact percentages, so that's kind of how it fell out numbers wise.
Yeah, and that's what it said was, I think.
Does it make sense for,
The chair, which is Rick Earnshaw, former Mayor Earnshaw, he'll always counter and say, well, it's not about the percentage, it's only $4 more per month per household, or $2 a month more per household, but it doesn't sit right.
does it make any sense for us, you, to compose a letter from the council to the district that kind of endorses your position? Does it give you any additional?
Let me stew on that, Bill, because I think if we did that, I would also probably talk to my counterparts at Woods Cross, Mayor Westergaard, as well as Kate Bradshaw at Bountiful City, and see if they would have that same support. I think if they had it from essentially your two largest cities, they're gonna have to
Stop.
listen up. Yeah. So, I don't know. But if we're gonna do that, we'd have to do it fairly quickly, so I'll get back to our council on it.
There was a lot of negativity on what I was reading about, and most of the people were saying they wanted the people that were using it to pay for it, rather than raising everybody's taxes,
Yeah,
which
that's never
isn't
gonna
necessarily the
happen.
answer, but if you get that much negativity out in the community, you're never gonna get a bond vote passed.
And that's what I was trying to stem. And
Right, and that's what's happening.
Yeah,
but the other board members' insistence that, and maybe they would feel the same way opposite, I'm trying to put myself in their shoes, but that we do an arbitrary rate increase that gets you to an arbitrary balance, that gets you to an arbitrary improvement position, just doesn't make sense. And it's actually, I think it's counterproductive and actually is gonna backfire. Which I hate to see, because I want the rec center to succeed. I'm a user of it. I want it to succeed, but how do you be a wise fiduciary and support that approach? I just can't support that approach.
well, and that's one where, you know, I recall reading about this earlier. The state auditor's office does list reasons for dissolution. And one of if the condition is met that the service could be provided more efficiently by another government entity or a private entity, that's cause for the governing body to vote on whether it should be dissolved. So if they can't get on top of their money issues, they're not going to meet the criteria for an efficient entity. And that's you know, to me, that's where I would be as a resident saying, look, bonding is not the end of the world. There are some good things that can come from bonding, especially with the future value, but trying to dig it out a year at a time, truth and taxation hearing every year, it's just going to really irritate the public. It's just not the way to do it. Totally agree with you.
Anyways, that's my report. Sorry that that one's not as cheery as I would like it to be.
Don't think it was your fault, so.
Thank you very much. Mayor, are you with us? Is the mayor with us?
I am.
Hello, Mayor.
Hello.
Do we have a report from you today?
You bet. I'm going to hold, I don't have anything really significant from my committee, so I'm going to, I'll hold that till I'm in person. But I want to thank Councilman Summerhays for being willing to take on that assignment. I know that he and I early on met, and we knew there were some issues there, and with his love of recreation and also his sound common sense with finances, I just appreciate him doing that. And so my message tonight is kind of a message of gratefulness and thankfulness. Within the last 3 days, I've lost a couple of close people to me, a cousin and a close friend from my childhood, and it makes me realize how much I appreciate those that are involved in my life. I appreciate each of you council members and all of the staff and all that you do and how hard that you work and the association that I do have with each one of you. One little issue that, and this is an issue of thankfulness as well too, is in the last couple of weeks, all I had to do was get a couple letter recommendations for that water grant that we're applying for. And Nate and Kevin and Mike and others did the rest. So I'm pretty sure we got that done and out. I know they were shooting to do that by last Friday. So so that has taken place. And then thank you for Councilman Summerhays and Mike Carlson for coming with me and meeting with congressional hopeful Celeste Malloy and being able to, you know, explain our issues with her as well too. So that's my report for tonight. Thank you, Robin, as well for leading this. Robin stepped, or Councilwoman Meekum, she stepped in last minute, and you did a fine job. So I appreciate it so much. Thanks for doing it.
Someone's being rude to me, Mayor. When you get back, just want you to know, someone was rude.
All right, I heard it, so. They're on the naughty list of Santa's for Christmas.
Thank you,
Hey, I
Mayor.
just want to make sure, Robin, did you fill out the online form for that Christmas party now that Mayor brings that up?
Yes.
Oh, good, okay. I'm just trying to make sure that people are responding to our. Oh, man.
Just talk when you're called upon and not otherwise. Okay, Brant, we're going to move on to you. Are you there?
Yes, thanks, Councilor Meek. I just have one item. I'll share my other item until I can be with you in person. An update from my last conference I just attended and all that. One item I just want to make you aware, because I know we get these calls every year. We're starting the process of winterizing our restrooms, and I know that seems a little early, and but I had a good conversation with Bruce, and we discussed, we coordinate that with the timing of the shutting off of the irrigation. But what Bruce has done this year to help is bringing in porta potties to some of these parks so as they can go and participate in the events, we'll have porta potties there. Winterizing takes some time. We know how our weather can be. It can flip pretty quickly, and since it takes some time, we don't want to have a burst like we did a number of years ago, because that's quite expensive. So I know people are going to call and say, why aren't the restrooms open? We're winterizing them, preparing them for the winter, but we'll have some porta potties. Smith Park, we'll have signs up saying, go use city halls, but we'll give them options so they can continue to enjoy the parks while the weather is still really nice. Any questions, concerns?
Thank you very much, and we hope you're feeling better.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Brent, do you want to talk, or I can do it really quickly, about the city council meeting dates in November?
If you would do that, that would be great, please.
Sure. So the general election was originally scheduled for November 7th, so we had scheduled our city council meeting for the 6th, for the Monday. Then the election was rescheduled to the 21st, so we can leave our meeting date on Monday if we want, or we can put it back to the Tuesday that we're used to. We'd have to cancel the Monday meeting and probably schedule a special meeting, since it's not our regularly scheduled meeting according to our annual meeting schedule that we approved at the beginning of the year. And then on the 21st, since that's the day of the election, even though we're not holding election, I don't know if we should. That's also the week of Thanksgiving, so we'd probably end up canceling that meeting anyways, but we do have, according to our annual meeting schedule, that meeting was scheduled on the 21st, but that's now the date of the general election.
So as it relates to the 6th and 7th, I would prefer it if we moved it back to the 7th, because that is, the 6th is the night of our truth and taxation hearing for the rec center.
Okay.
I would also,
I would support that.
I think that's a good idea, just since that's what everybody's used to. And then, as far as the 21st,
I would leave it on the 21st.
I think we're all right on the 21st. We don't have an election, and
okay.
Just see what comes up on your agenda. If it's a light agenda, then maybe you cancel it.
And it may be canceled. I mean.
Right, just keep it as a placeholder, and then if
Okay.
staff feels like, hey, we can conduct business without impairing anybody and move it to December, I think we'd be supportive of that.
Okay, I'll just need to make sure that there's not any issues with us holding a meeting on the date of the general election, like in general, not just because we're not
Thank you for having that.
having an election.
I think we've talked, I
Yeah,
thought
you may
about,
say we may be precluded from doing it altogether.
we've talked
Yeah.
about that before, and I think when we talked about it, there wasn't anything precluding us, but if you've got council members that could be voted on or off that night, it's
Sure.
kind of awkward for them to get the numbers while they're sitting up here. And so that's why we changed it.
Okay, so we'll just plan on rescheduling our 6th meeting to the 7th and leaving on the 21st. So we'll just have a regular Tuesday nights meetings in November, and maybe the meeting on the 21st will be canceled because it's Thanksgiving week. But we'll see when we get there.
All right, thank you.
There's a subtle hint there in that one.
I'm just saying, everyone likes holidays, so. Okay, that's all, thank you.
Do we have anyone else that might have some comments they'd like to make?
Is that a pointed remark?
Is that a rhetorical question or a real question?
It's a real question. We had somebody that thought he would like to make some comments. Maybe he's changed his mind. Oh, okay, I guess he's gonna hold off. I didn't forget you. It's the only good thing I've done tonight.
This may be out of line, and if it is, tell me. Is anybody, maybe Mike, familiar with this agreement that our first public comment person was talking about that goes back 20 years about the well?
We'll check into that and get you some answers.
Well, unfortunately, as a good city attorney has told me, you cannot bind future councils, so whatever verbal agreement was made, unless it's in writing, there isn't anything for the council to work with. Our comments are valid and understandable, but, it doesn't really
But is
matter.
anybody aware of such an agreement? You are. And is it a written agreement?
It's not a written agreement.
Then it's not an agreement,
And it's not an agreement.
in my mind. Sorry, I mean.
I was just
We want to be
curious. I've never heard
men
of it.
and women of our word, but when you're dealing with public matters, if it's, yeah.
It would be very foolish if somebody did that. Would be my reaction. Are you aware of it at all, Mike? Okay.
Okay, do we have anything else before we close?
Is there any need for a closed meeting?
No.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Vote, go ahead and vote.
Aye.
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 And meeting is adjourned.